You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hello, mama friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I couldn't be more excited to chat with my guest today, Lauren Golden. Lauren is the fearless leader of the Free Mama movement and a thriving community of tens of thousands of women who don't want to choose between family and financial stability. Her mission is simple. Lauren wants to ensure that no mother ever has to sacrifice time with her babies in order to provide for them. Lauren is also a 2 Comma Club award winner and a #1 international best-selling author. In her book, The Free Mama: How to Work from Home, Control Your Schedule, and Make More Money, she shares her own story along with plenty of practical advice for anyone looking to leave the 9-to-5 behind and live a totally awesome, guilt-free life. Lauren, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Good. Well, first things first, I know your story is very, very personal to your mission. Can you share with us a little bit more background on who you are and how you got started with the Free Mama movement?
Absolutely. So, a lot of times I'll do an interview or be talking to someone and they'll ask me, how'd you start your business or how'd you start the Free Mama movement? And it really started with myself, and not in an arrogant way. I wish I had the foresight of what I would go on to create later, but I could barely see past the tip of my nose. I grew up with a stay-at-home mom. To me, that's like what being a good mom looked like. Flash forward to adulthood, and that was not a possibility for me and my husband financially. And so when we got pregnant with our oldest and I went back to work, I had a lot of guilt around that. But I very quickly realized that I actually love working. I've always been very driven, very high achieving, very ambitious, probably like a lot of the people listening. Like, I like having my own goals and I like striving towards them and reaching them. And that was a really important part of who I am. And I didn't want to lose that in motherhood. And I see a lot of people do that, right? Where we sacrifice kind of our own path for our kids. And I think a lot of people come around on that. But for me, my story was being this working mom and trying to reconcile, like, how do I achieve my goals, and how do I provide, and how do I get to satisfy this desire to work, but still show up as the mom that I wanted to be. And this got really, really hard for me in about 2014. That's when my second kiddo was born, my son, and they're exactly 2 years apart. And this to me was like something had to give moment where, like, I had a 2-year-old, and if you have a 2-year-old, you know what that's like. I had a newborn, and I had a husband who is also very entrepreneurial and was gone 7 days a week. And I had a lot of pressure on myself. And I've talked to so many women who feel this way, where every day I felt like I was on this hamster wheel of failure. Like, I felt like I was failing as a mom because I wasn't as present as I wanted to be. And, I felt like my kids were getting my leftovers of, like, I'd go to this job and I'd come home and I was exhausted. And so not only did I not have energy for them, but I had to do like all the grown-up things that we have to do, like cook them dinner and do laundry and like shower and like all of these other, very mechanical things that we have to do. But there wasn't a whole lot of joy in our time together. There was just a lot of stress and overwhelm. And it wasn't really any better when I was at my job. I felt guilty when I was at my job that I wasn't with them. And it just felt like it was never enough. And so that was when 2014 was when my journey of Googling how to work from home began, where I was like, all right, I want to work. I think I can be a good mom and work. But this 9-to-5 environment where I don't have any control over my schedule, and I feel like I'm fulfilling someone else's dream, it's not working for me anymore. And I tried a lot of different things. I tried the network marketing path. I tried surveys. I tried signing up for those secret shopper things. I never found any that panned out, but if you have, let me know about them, because I still think that that's like really cool on paper. But I never made money from any of these things. And for me, my real story and kind of the beginning of the Free Mama started when I discovered freelancing and realized how accessible that it is to everyone, quite frankly. I always thought that freelancing was like something you had to be like a coder or like super techie, or like I had worked with in my jobs, like freelance photographers, for example. But I didn't realize that was something that I could do because I was none of those things. And my journey started with social media management. Today, I teach women to do copywriting, bookkeeping, social media management, virtual assistants, online business management. Like there's so many different opportunities to do virtual work as a contractor as opposed to an employee. But that was really the beginning of my journey. And so the Free Mama really started with me becoming a free mama and learning how to navigate the challenges of being a work-at-home mom, because there are still challenges. I always say there's no struggle-free life, but for me, it cleared up that control over my schedule where at least I got to decide. I got to decide when I worked. I got to decide how much money I was making. I got to decide whether or not I chose to put my kids in childcare. And it was life-changing, honestly.
Yeah, I bet. Gosh, so many similarities that I have felt in those shoes. And I know so many moms listening, you know, the guilt of being out of the house for so many hours a day, the guilt of, or even just like the lack of fulfillment, like you mentioned, you know, doing this work for someone else. I think that all of that really, I mean, as hard as it was, it fueled this amazing empire that you were able to create.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because now, I mean, obviously nobody saw well, maybe not nobody, but I sure as heck didn't see the pandemic coming. If I did, I would have made some different choices so that I was more prepared. Investing in toilet paper being one of them, like that would have been genius. But, you know, flash forward to today and the changes we've seen in the workforce and, you know, millions of women being pushed out and just virtual learning and just the burden that we did not ask for that is just surviving through all of this. It's just really interesting how it's come full circle, in my opinion, for moms and how you talk about fulfillment, because we need employees. Like there's nothing wrong with traditional employment. If you're listening to this and you don't have the desire to be self-employed, like that's amazing. That's great. But we're still seeing this big restructuring where people feel like they have more choices over that fulfillment. And some people are choosing self-employment, whether it's freelancing or something else, but other people are just choosing different careers or different companies. And I myself started hiring my first employees. I'd previously had support from contractors. I hired 2 employees last year, and we 100% led with mission, vision, and core values. Because I think even as an employee, you can absolutely find fulfillment, but it's probably not going to come exclusively from the work that you do, because you can do that work anywhere. It's going to come from who you do it for and the difference you feel like you're actually making. And that can happen in any work environment. So
true. Have you heard that expression, people don't quit jobs, they quit managers?
I haven't, but it's a really good one.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, right? All right. Well, so many moms face this decision daily, as you were in those shoes, right? Of having to choose between their family and their financial stability. And you make it possible for women to not have to make that choice. So how do you actually do this?
There are still choices involved. The hardest choice is the one to get started and to invest in yourself and to take a risk. That's really the decision that I'm asking people to make. And not everybody wants to make that, and that's okay. And I think at the end of the day, it starts with being honest with ourselves about what we really want or don't want and what we're willing to do in order to have it. You know, my own story was I had a foot in both worlds for a while, you know, where I was already overwhelmed and stressed out. And yet I was starting a side gig on top of it with the hopes that I would eventually be able to leave my job. And that requires a level of sacrifice. And I think we live in a time when, and again, COVID really messed this up for our brains, we want that instant gratification. We see all these great market I want to call them marketers, but I was about to say liars. I don't know. We see all these people sharing their stories of their like overnight success or maybe they're not, right? Like, I think it's easy to look at even my story and be like, oh my gosh, she did this so fast. What we don't see about other people's stories is what it took to get there, And what I love about freelancing is unlike how we've been conditioned our whole life to be like, well, time is money. Well, it's really not. And that's part of what I teach people. Like, quit selling your hours, sell your value. Like, that was my beef with a 9-to-5 job is I don't understand why I have to sit here until 5 o'clock. That doesn't make sense to me. I finished my responsibilities at 2. I should be able to leave and have higher quality of life and be with my kids. And I will come back here and I will outperform my coworkers again tomorrow. But why do I have to sit here? And so I think the appeal to me of being self-employed is that you can structure your time in your business in a way where you're really being rewarded for the value and the impact that you have on other people in their businesses. And so that's kind of that restructuring. And we learn the mechanics. I can teach you, the logistics and here's the checklist and here's how to get started. But I think the hardest part and what I'm maybe most proud of what happens inside the Free Mama movement community is the rewiring of our mindset around life and what's possible and ourselves. And I think we've just been so conditioned to think things have to be a certain way. And I just challenge women to rethink that. And is that actually true? And what if you had the courage to put yourself out there? Or what if you had, the strategy to increase your rates and scale back your time? And it's amazing what people are able to accomplish when they challenge those beliefs, but it's not. Changing your mindset is not a step-by-step program. It takes time and discipline and you got to get your reps in. And it's one of those things where after it happens, you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not even the same person anymore. But going through it can be hard and painful, honestly.
Oh, yeah. You get some sore days during those workouts.
Yeah, you do. You do. You really do. I started seeing a new counselor on Monday, and she, bless her heart, she didn't know what she was getting into with me. I am so vulnerable, and I go deep fast. Like, I don't have a need for small talk. And she's like going through all of her like onboarding stuff, and I'm just like chuckling. I'm like, I understand she has to do it, and I respect her process. But she like makes a comment. She's like, so things are going to get worse before they get better. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. I'm like, you don't even know. Like, let's do it, but it's true. And I think when we can find the joy in that, like in the growing, in the growth, in the journey, that's when this gets fun. Like that's the point, I guess. It's the point. It's not just about the end result. I quit my job. I hit that first 5K month. I got my first, like, those wins are important and those to set as goals are important. But what's the saying, how you spend your days is how you spend your life. Like, we've just got to, I don't know, we got to enjoy the process of getting there and not be so hard on ourselves. And then also not get so stuck in comparison from what we're seeing other people do online because we don't know the whole story.
1,000%. That is the demise of so many, right? It stops them from starting. It stops them from continuing. It kicks them when they're having a rough day. I mean, it is just such an unwelcome thing that happens. Yeah. And it happens to everyone because it's right there in your face. Yep. It's right there in your face.
Yeah. I talk a lot in my community around boundaries, and there's like physical boundaries and time boundaries. But this, to me, yes, there's physical boundaries with our phone and like, what can we do to not be on it all the time, or to, have timers, or, maybe your physical boundary might, I don't know, leaving it in a different room during family time or whatever. So there's less exposure, but there's also emotional boundaries. And to me, like, I have two things. Like, when I see something online, it either inspires me or it triggers me. And if it's triggering me, I have to ask myself why. And depending on the answer to that question, like, I unfollow and unsubscribe from stuff faster than anybody you've ever seen, because I want to protect myself. I want to protect my vision and my self-esteem and my self-worth, and I don't want it getting wrapped up in other things. And so, and sometimes that happens for a season where I'll follow someone and for a season they're inspiring me, but then maybe I start being triggered. And am I triggered because I'm being challenged, or am I triggered because, again, it's like, it's making me feel less than. And if I'm feeling less than, I unfollow. If it's a challenge, if it's a call to be better or do better, then I've got to investigate what that next step might look like for myself. Do I need to talk to someone or read something or educate myself? But that I'm constantly viewing the world through multiple lenses. When I look at stuff, when I talk to people, when I listen to speeches, when I scroll mindlessly on social media, I always have more than one lens. I talk to my students about this. Like, you've got to imagine, like, yes, you're consuming on one side, but if we consume passively, I can just tell you right now, you will never grow, change, or be rich. You won't, because producers make money off of consumers. They just do. So we can't be passive consumers. We have to add that other lens, which is like that observation. It's that like detective, the curious of like, why is this happening? Why is this working? How is this making me feel? And what can I learn from this? And I think that's why I have to go to bed at like 8:00 at night, because I'm so tired after like having two lenses all day. But if I could give you a piece of advice, like, quit passively consuming what's happening in the world. Start paying attention, asking questions, and being curious. And I think it's a really powerful tool.
Yeah. I like the way you put that with the two lenses. I look at this from a time management perspective as just really being intentional with how you use your time. So if you are scrolling because that is what you need in that moment, be intentional about that scroll. Who are you following on social? Who should you unfollow? As you said, like, really fill that time with things that are going to lift you up and not bring you down. So couldn't agree more. All right. Well, tell us more about this freelancing world. So you mentioned a few different things that you teach, like copywriting and social media management. Like, tell us more about the type of work this is. Can anyone do it? Do you need a specific background?
Love it.
Let's go.
Cool. Yeah. So if you're not familiar with freelancing, I always say it's kind of like a job, except you're not an employee. So some people call it, we hear a lot about side gig economy. You're independent contractor, W-9er. There's all different ways to put it. But I really just call it, you're a virtual business owner, because essentially you are self-employed. And what that means is you get a lot of control and a lot of power, which when you're first getting started can feel really overwhelming, because again, we've been conditioned to be told what to do. It's why my community really was invented, to be able to give people who are just getting started that step by step, because we don't know what we don't know, right? But within this, you get to decide the services you offer. And I can give it to your audience. I have a free checklist. It's got like over 100 services that entrepreneurs outsource for. We call it the 70 skills checklist because there used to be 70 on there and now there's over 100. So, but yeah, everything from administrative type tasks, social media, even within social media, think about it. You've got Pinterest managers, YouTube managers, Facebook community group managers, Instagram managers. Like, there's so many different avenues that you could take as an independent contractor or small business owner. And you get to set your rates. You get to decide who you work with. And notice how I'm saying, remember how there's been like a big swing, I feel like, in the last couple of years of like, people used to post like their to-do lists like on social media in the morning. Yeah. And now where everybody's saying like, get to do. And it is true. Like, you get to decide all of these things. And again, I know it can feel overwhelming when you don't know where to start, but that's why people like myself create resources to tell you how to do that. But it's really empowering, because unlike a job, you can give yourself a raise anytime you want. All you need is a computer and Wi-Fi to get started. And I have had students who literally did not even have a computer, who either borrowed from a friend, they started on a tablet, they started on their phone, they went to a local library. So trust me, whatever excuse you can come up with, I can give you 5 more reasons why you can still get started if you really want it, right? Like, if you don't want it, you're going to keep finding excuses, but I can give you reasons why there are other ways to go about doing it. I am in love with freelancing and the opportunity it provides, especially for women, especially for moms, because of how accessible it is. I told you I tried network marketing. I'm sure we've got some MLMers listening, and it's okay if you don't like me after this. But if you look at the data industry-wide, 99.71% of people will lose money in network marketing. Whereas if you look at the data around freelancing, literally over 50% of people who become independent contractors or freelancers will out-earn their salary within their first year. The earning potential is massive. And this is whether you need to make a couple $100s a month or you're looking to replace a 6-figure salary. And we have our own data at the Free Mama from our students around that as well. And it's just very exciting. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have a certification. You have to have a willingness to figure it out. You have to be able to solve a problem for an entrepreneur who's looking to outsource. And this could be something as simple as like managing their calendar or as complicated as like helping them with their taxes and everything in between. There are creative spaces, administrative spaces, tech spaces, writing spaces. And so again, you know, a lot of people come to me and they're like, well, I've been working as a nurse for the last 20 years. Like, I can't do this. And I'm like, let me tell you about my friend Wendy. Like, I have a story for every single job you could tell me you had. What we have to learn to do for anybody interested in getting started, but it feels like so far away for you, we have to separate tasks from skills. You have skill. We all have skills. We have natural born talents, and then we have things that come easier to us, and then we have skills that we have worked on and refined and continue to build over time. We use those skills to complete tasks. So if you're a teacher and you've been using your skills of maybe communication, maybe organization, maybe interpersonal relationships, you probably have all of those skills. You've been using them to complete the task of doing parent-teacher conferences, dealing with an administration, preparing lesson plans, showing up and standing and speaking in front of a classroom. All we have to do is, your skills are the same. They're built in. We have to just consider transferring those tasks. So it might look like, instead of standing in front of a classroom or preparing a lesson plan, maybe you're working with coaches and course creators to make sure that their content is being delivered in a way that's going to best serve their students online. Like, that's a very natural bridge. Are you going to maybe have to learn some new software or technology or verbiage? Yeah, but every single industry that I'm aware of has its own lingo. So if you think back to when you first started in nursing school, you probably didn't understand anything people were saying either, right? And so I think one of the things that's really fascinating is, like, the older we get, the more stubborn I think we become around learning new things. Like, if we think about when we were a kid, like, we didn't have all these objections around, like, trying to learn something new. And for some reason it gets harder. And I just challenge that thought. Like, if you want it, like, everybody else started out at ground zero too. So why not you? Why can't you do it as well?
Yeah. And I like how you said that the older we get, the harder it is to learn new things. I also think the harder it is to leave your comfort zone the older you get, right? Like, you don't want to take off those stretchy, elastic, waisted pants and put on the tight jeans.
Are you calling me out right now? Because I definitely still have my yoga pants on. That's so funny. I think of this. I love this. The analogy that always comes to my mind when I hear people talk about, like, your comfort zone is like that bad high school or college boyfriend. Like, you knew this was not the right person for you, and yet you dragged on and you went back over and over. Mine was high school. You went back over and over again. You knew it wasn't healthy, but it was more comfortable to be unhappy together than it was to be in discomfort in the unknown by yourself. And you're absolutely right. I have a graphic that my graphic designer created for me, where it's like, it's our little, like, Free Mama Girl logo. And then there's, like, this big line in between that says, like, limiting beliefs. And, like, her face is sad on the top, and it's, like, happy on the, like, our logo on the bottom. And it's like comfort zone, like, everything you actually want. And it's like on the other side of the line. And that line is all of your limiting beliefs. It's all the crap you're telling yourself about why you can't actually do those things, have those things, become that person. And it's not true. It's a story we tell ourselves, but it's not to be discounted because it's really powerful. And it is not easy. That's the hardest part of starting a business, is overcoming those stories and that mindset. It's not the actual logistics of running a business. You're smart and you can figure those things out.
Right. So true. All right. Well, what if you're coming from being the breadwinner or the financial stability in your family? Like, you hold the benefits. I mean, yep. I was in those shoes at one point here, and I used that personally as an excuse for a long time to not take the leap. I mean, I know we met years ago before I even started my side hustle. I did that alongside my corporate job for 3 years. Some years more intently wanting to make it more substantial, other years being okay with that juggle, but that was definitely a reason I utilized to stay. And I know so many other women listening are likely feeling the same. So is this still an option? Is freelancing still an option if this is you in your family?
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to have a humble brag from someone. It's not even me. It's for someone else in my audience. And then I will tell you my own story with that. And then I will tell you what some of the people in my community have done. So we have Free Mama Live coming up. That's our in-person event. We haven't met since the year before COVID, in March. And we will do our little award ceremony. I already told you we've got 6-figure earners. So we've got this cute little statue. It's like our logo, but like a trophy statue thing for 6 figures. We've got, I think, over 20 people who have submitted for that award, meaning they're making 6 figures in a year in their business, which is awesome. Of our students, people who've gone through our program. We have to create a 7-figure award this year because I have a student who's literally she made $1 million in 2021 in her business. So I tell you that because I want you to know that that's possible. And this is cliche. This is not mine, but I very much followed this belief system when I first launched the Free Mama movement. Was like, a lot of times we look at people and we're like, oh my God, well, of course they can do it because blah, 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 all this stuff we don't actually know. We're just picking it up from Instagram, but I can't do it. Instead, I want to challenge you to think like, well, if she can do it, it's possible. And if it's possible for her, it's possible for me. Like, we have to adopt that mentality. So my own story is actually a lot like yours, Marissa. It's embarrassing to say I was the breadwinner because I want to be really clear that I did not have a 6-figure salary. Like, I had a very modest salary. We were also living in Kansas. So like cost of living is lower, but it was not anything to write home about. We'll just say that. With that being said, like, I very much supported my family because we had taken out a 6-figure. This was the year that I started freelancing, the same year I quit my job. We had taken out a multi-6-figure business loan for my husband to acquire some brick and mortar businesses. He was working 7 days a week and he was not consistently paying himself. He had to meet payroll. He had to pay his loan. If there was anything left over, we got lucky. So like, there was not anybody else consistently supporting our family. And at this time, I was the only one contributing to retirement, and we were on benefits from my 9-to-5 job. Same as you. That to me, I don't even know if I would have had the awareness to call it an excuse. To me, that was like, that was done. Like, that was concrete. Like, how could I, like, my mindset literally was, how could I possibly risk all of this? Like, how could I not do this? That would make me a bad mom. That would make me an irresponsible adult. Like, I had some really drastic thoughts because I was not surrounded by other business owners at this time in my life. And so that's just where I was. And where I'm at now, and what I tell other people is like, and I wish I could like hold hands with them through the screen when I say this, but like, you're not the first person. Like, I wasn't the first person. I just felt alone because I didn't have anybody else at this time in my life. But you are not the first person to have to figure this out. Like, you are not the first person to become self-employed and wonder what to do about insurance. Like, you're just not. And so we have to be willing to look at like, okay, other people have figured this out. Where are those people who can guide me and support me? You know, and we've done everything over the years. So I have been self-employed since 2015, full-time self-employed since, is that right? Yeah, 2015. So 7 years. My husband was self-employed when I left my job. He has had a couple of full-time jobs. He's now also fully self-employed. So we've kind of gone back and forth with him being on benefits of a company, but I have paid for my healthcare, my retirement, and my children's since 2015. We did the Obamacare when that came out. We have gone through personal brokerage firms. And it's, you know, at one point we were still making babies and now we're not. And so like, your family's needs change and you've got to, so talk to people, ask the questions, but just know like, you are not the first. Like, if you're like, I'm a geriatric millennial, so like, I still believe I'm a special snowflake. And we all like to think, we all like to think like our problems are so unique and they're just not. And honestly, I hope that brings you comfort. I'm not trying to tell you you're not special. You are the only you. You are special.
I love that you exemplify it in this way. I love it because it is important to hit home. Also, you have really embraced the geriatric millennial.
Oh, well, because I really identify as a millennial until I talk to young millennials. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm the same as you, but there are some overlaps for sure. I do. I almost didn't start I started freelancing because, again, narrow point of view. I got to get out of my 9 to 5. I started the Free Mama movement because that view expanded to there are other women like me and they need to know that this is accessible. So my perspective shifted. And that's when I expanded my business, and that's where we are today. But again, I think we have that when we are so in our day-to-day problems and we are unhappy and unfulfilled and we don't know what to do about it. That's where we are. And I've been there, so I understand what that feels like, but reach out. Join my Facebook group, contact Marissa. People have figured this out. You are not the only person trying to figure it out. And does it mean that it's an easy, obvious solution? No, but here's the spoiler. You probably are you're paying into taxes, you're paying into your retirement, you're probably paying into your healthcare. It's just all being masked through your paycheck that your employer gives to you. So it's really not that different. And when you're self-employed, there's lots of tax benefits that if you work with a CPA or accountant or tax professional, you can actually write off a lot of stuff. And it doesn't suck. I'm just saying. But it requires us to learn new things and kind of trust that it's worth it to invest in learning enough to be dangerous so that we can actually make these decisions and get out of it. Last thing, I already mentioned we have a bunch of 6-figure earners. Here's the deal. If you are someone who is earning 6 figures or you're the breadwinner in your family or whatever, you are smart. I'm just telling you, you're smart. You've done something right. Whether you went to school or not doesn't really matter. You were qualified to get that job and that title in your house. You are also therefore capable of starting a business. There are people a lot less bright than you doing okay in this world. So I promise you can figure it out. Might it take more time? Yeah. I already told you boundaries is one of my favorite topics. One of my other favorite topics is expectations and learning to manage them, right? I'm not going to lie. I've had students hit 6 figures their first year. They have, but they had the drive. They had the clarity. They made decisions quickly. They failed fast. They got out of their own way, and then it worked, and then they went. These weren't the people who came in my community and they're like, I have 30 minutes a day. And I'm like, okay, you can build your business off 30 minutes a day, but you're probably not going to hit 6 figures your first year if you only are working 30 minutes a day. And we have to manage those expectations. And again, there's a give and a take. And then the other thing I'll say within freelancing is there's a really wide scope depending on the problem you solve. The more people that can solve that problem, the less you can probably charge. Virtual assistants is a beautiful place to start. But if you're in the United States, you're going to max out at about $35 an hour. And that's if you are really super good at what you do, starting somewhere around 15, right? But if you're just getting started in this world and you don't have a background or a degree, or maybe you've been a stay-at-home mom, there's absolutely nothing wrong with starting there. It is beautiful. You can earn a fantastic living on your own terms doing that. Now, if you solve a problem that fewer people can solve, like maybe running Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever that's going to have a direct return on that business owner's investment in you, you're going to be able to charge $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 for certain projects or setups or monthly retainers. And you can see that you only need a couple clients to hit those goals. So there's a really wide spectrum. And so it's not always apples to apples, but what's important to remember is the scope of possibility. You are only limited by what you believe is possible. You are literally only limited by what you believe is possible. So
good, Lauren. Oh my God. Well, on that note, let's jump over to our lightning round. This is, I love that reaction.
I gotta put my thinking cap on.
Yes. All right. So these are just super fun, random questions, just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better on a personal level.
Cool.
All right.
I'm ready.
All right. So what is your go-to get shit done song?
Oh, I actually, when I am doing focused work, deep work, I actually need silence. I can't work with any sort of background noise. With that being said, this last year got to speak on a couple stages, which was really cool. And so I actually was asked for a walkout song. And so it's Britney Spears' Work BITCH.
Yes.
On your podcast. But that's my walkout song. That's the song that like, especially at one of the events I spoke at, like there were thousands of people there and thousands more streaming in. Like it was a really big deal. And I was nervous and I knew I was going to be nervous. And so I was like, what's the song that when I hear it, I'm going to be reminded of what I'm capable of? And it's that song.
That is one of my faves. That always hypes me up for
so
sure.
Good.
Yeah. What's your guilty pleasure TV show?
Bachelor. #Bachelor Nation. The whole franchise, to be clear. The whole franchise.
Yeah. Every piece of it. Okay.
It's like the only show I watch. It's really sad.
What if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life? What would it be?
One food or one food genre?
All right. Go with the genre. Go ahead.
Okay, Mexican food.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure.
Yeah.
What's something you never leave your house without?
My phone, my bag.
Yeah,
I guess the keys.
Realistic. Yeah. What's your cocktail of choice?
I don't know. Virgin margarita. I love margaritas. I used to drink. It just stopped making me feel good. And for me, it wasn't worth it. So if I had like chocolate, if you told me to give up chocolate, I would cry. So I've got a sweet tooth, but I'm not a big drinker, but margarita.
All right, what's your chocolate brand of choice?
Ooh, so baked goods. Like I could do without candy, ice cream. I don't need any of that, but you give me like a cookie right out of the oven. I will eat the entire pan, like absolutely not feel bad about it.
I feel like I'm learning so much about you and we have a lot in common here.
Perfect.
A lot more than I thought.
We should bake cookies together and watch The Bachelor.
And then eat the whole thing. Okay. And then what is one app you cannot live without?
I gotta that I can't live without. I mean, I would say, if I'm being really honest, I would say Audible. Like I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I think that would be really hard to give up. I would say my favorite app right now, which is not the question you asked, but my husband and I both downloaded Duolingo, which is like learning a foreign language. And we're pretty addicted. It's like super fun. Yeah, I was like,
what are you learning?
I'm refreshing my Spanish. I actually minored in Spanish, but we're going to Mexico this year. So I've been trying to practice more. And then my husband is learning French. So we will not be able to talk together.
So fun.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, before we wrap up, please remind our listeners where they can find you. We will definitely link up. I forgot the name of that fun freebie you mentioned.
Yeah, the 70 skills checklist. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. The best place to hang out with me is inside of our Facebook group. So if you search the Free Mama Movement on Facebook, I'm in there every single day answering questions, talking to people. I absolutely love to get to know people in that group. And if you're interested in learning about freelancing, check out freemamatv.com. We'll take you to my YouTube channel. We put out how-to videos every single Tuesday going on 3 years now. Trust me, like the only excuse is that you don't want it bad enough. There's no reason not to start. All the information's there for the taking.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for being here and sharing so much wisdom, so much knowledge. This was such a great conversation.
Thank you. I'll see you for our bachelor cookie date.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, mama.